BA PharmD, registered pharmacist, is a clinical associate professor in the Department of Pharmacy Practice at the University of Nebraska College of Pharmacy. She coordinates and teaches the Law and Ethics classes, the OTC and Self-Care Products course, the Point-of-Care Testing course, and the Immunization course. She is also the preceptor for a public policy experiential rotation for senior level pharmacy students. A pharmacist immunization advocate, Allie has given more than 40,000 immunizations during her career. Allie was the 2015 Teacher of the Year for the College of Pharmacy and was named a Fellow in AAPT in 2017. Allie is a Midwest radio personality with a live call-in radio show airing on 9 Midwestern radio stations on a bi-weekly basis. The show, boasting more than 500 episodes, is broadcast as a part of the KFOR AM 1240 Problems and Solutions show, Alpha Media, Lincoln, Nebraska. Allie is a graduate of Doane College in Crete, Nebraska, and the University of Nebraska College of Pharmacy. She has been a licensed and practicing pharmacist in Nebraska and Iowa for over 30 years. She served as the Assistant Executive Director of the Nebraska Pharmacists Association for 13 years and worked the vampire shift for Walgreens. Wow. Allie has spoken nationally and internationally on pharmacy topics, and it is my pleasure to introduce our treat this morning, Dr. Allie Deary-Anders.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I couldn't figure out how to make my microphone work either, but here's the catch. I'm really loud. So you don't have to worry about that. I need to tell you a couple of things about me before we get started. The first one is I am occasionally irreverent. The second one is I have figured out that the only reason I exist is because we have patients. So they are never my enemy. Even though there are times when you're like, I don't know if I can stand one more friend right now. They're never my enemy. And so when we look at patient safety, which actually is then going to expand itself to your safety, it's really important to me that we sort of keep our eye on the prize. The last thing I need to tell you is that I brought my husband to this conference. My husband is a hydrogeologist, and I'm at Niagara Falls. I really didn't need to come for him to have a good time. We sat there and watched the water go over the edge, because I think that's what falls means. And it goes, and it goes, and it goes, and it goes, and it goes. And he stops and he says, well, you realize that in the last 4 minutes, more water has gone over these falls than the entire city of Lincoln, Nebraska will use in a day. And I said, no, Owen, I was unaware of that. Well, if we stand here for 2 more minutes, we will have seen more water than the city of Omaha will use in a day. And I said, great. How long do we have to stand here for Beijing? So anyway, when we travel, if there's a hole in the ground, we have to look into it. And oh my goodness, now we've got a hole in the ground with water pouring into it. I don't know that anything could get better, honestly. When we look at the workplace environment and patient safety, there are a couple of things that you identify all of the time. But we're never exactly sure what to do with them, right? I know it's that feeling. Something ain't right here. But I don't know what it is, and I don't know how to fix it. When we look at the learning objectives, can all of you read? Perfect, and we're not going to do that. So let's start with a true-false question. Good morning. Pharmacy technicians are legally allowed to use judgment when working in the pharmacy or the hospital. Just make a decision. Don't blast it out. Just hold that thought. So what I want to do today is to talk to you about owning your role in patient safety. The patient safety is a job for all of us. And that includes calling me out. Now, I understand that just like any other family group, we're supposed to brag in public and bitch in private. I got that. But if there is a chance that I'm going to hurt somebody, I need you to stop me in whatever way it takes. Throw something at me. This one, she said she would. She promised. Or yell out, hey, wait. Grab me physically. Don't let me give them the wrong thing. Whatever it takes to stop me from hurting somebody. Now, a drop tackle may be excessive. I'm kind of an old woman. I'm not sure I can get up off the floor. But more importantly than how we're going to make that work, because you will have a different relationship with every pharmacist. I get that. If keeping the patient safe isn't what we're thinking about every minute, then we've lost our vision. And I get it. You've got some store manager who's worried about metrics and is this green or is it yellow or is the dial spinning or whatever that. I don't care. Yes, I worked the vampire shift at Walgreens, and yes, sometimes all my little wheels turned red, and I didn't care. First off, there weren't a whole lot of people aching to work at 3 o'clock in the morning, so I had a little bit of job security. But more than that, nobody ever got hurt. I never hurt anybody. And I may have suggested anatomically impossible things that could be done with those wheels, regardless of what color they were. But the issue is, patient safety came first. And I like to think that I am a really good pharmacist. If I didn't think that, I would be a little bit hesitant to teach, because I don't want to teach bad things. But one of the things that I figured out is I can't work alone. Not anymore. The system has gotten too complex. I'm too damn old to figure out the technology. And there's just too many moving pieces. So I think that nobody has a better view of patient safety than you. I think you can see when something is going to crash and burn. You know when we're going too fast. You know when we have messed up workflow so badly that nobody can do a good job. And you know when you walk into work, oh, it's Allie today. And she's going to make me change the labels because she's got that grammar thing. And she's going to talk to all of those people who just want to buy cough syrup. And she's going to, oh my goodness, so I have to suddenly change everything I do. Yep, that's part of the job. And I think that's the hardest part of your job, frankly. I think that adapting to each one of us and our own quirks, and the reality is there is no one more independent than pharmacists. By God, we're going to do it my way because I am certain that I am right and everybody needs to do it my way. I got that. And I got what a challenge that is. And I am unwilling to change, and I bet that most of my colleagues are unwilling to change. But some of the stuff that we do can't change. It has to be safety first. I live in Nebraska. I've always lived in Nebraska. We're slow at making changes. Anybody here from Idaho? I think I'd be okay with letting my techs immunize, except for it's one of my favorite things in the world. And I'm not sure I really want to give it up, because I bet that you're going to love it too. But we don't even have tech in my state. We are working on writing the first ever law on tech. And the first ever law in Nebraska on tech will only apply to hospitals. Because we're kind of slow. Because we are always patient safety first. It's an interesting situation. But for me, I don't know jack about hospital. Seriously, I had a rotation in a hospital in September of 1985. If you were not born yet, don't say it out loud. And that's when I left hospital. And I was done. And I was good with being done. I've got something about I like it when my patients are dressed and standing up. I just kind of do. But I get it, for those of you who work in hospital, you're like, seriously? You have no tech in Nebraska? Right, we got none. And I think that our approach to writing this new law is exactly analogous to what we want to talk about today, which is, I think you're really bright people. I am grateful every day when you show up to work. I probably don't tell you often enough. Oh, thank you, Jesus, my tech showed up. But that's honestly how my life works. But as long as we are all focused on patient safety, I think we're all going to get where we want to go. Maybe slowly, but we're going to get there. So we have some things to consider. Do we have bad workflow? And if we do, fix it. Do we have bad communication? I'm going to tell you we all have bad communication because somehow pharmacy has decided that we are more special than medicine or nursing and we're wrong. And we're going to steal some things from them because they've figured out a way to make it work. Do we have unnecessary distractions? Anybody else here work in corporate America where you get an endless stream of ridiculous OTC ads interspersed with every Disney princess theme song known to man? I don't think, even with my granddaughters, that I can watch Pocahontas. Because that Color of the Wind thing, just every time I hear it, I'm like, oh my God, I've got to fill a prescription. Because it's always playing. We have some really ridiculous, and then starting what, Halloween, you begin to get all of the Christmas music. I'm sorry, holiday music. Because you don't ever get the Christmas carols you love, because we might offend somebody. Exactly. So you get just nasty Dean, what's his name, trying to come in out of the cold. It's crazy. So when we think about all of those things, if we don't communicate, if we've got bad workflow, if we allow distractions and we're just like, oh, well, we need to deal with this. I have a line up here I'm not supposed to cross. The lady over at the camera's going, she's getting close to the line. If any of those make you unsafe, there is no doubt that you can't make your patient safe. And so we need to figure out that it's okay to change those. Is your workflow logical? Why haven't you changed it? I'm asking. If your answer was no, it is not logical, why don't you fix it? Who is the workflow expert in the room?
Where?
You are. It's not me. You know where I am. I may be at the very beginning. I may be at the very end. I am sure as hell always the rate limiting step. Well, if the pharmacist would pick it up, we could be through with, I get that. But I'm not in the middle. That's all you. Make the middle work. Don't let me tell you what your workflow is. I'm not doing your job. And maybe when I'm all alone, my workflow makes sense. But truly, if you're doing things like bumping butts, we gotta change things. There's no reason for you to run into each other. It's not a good workflow, so fix it. And institutionalize the fix. Don't tell me it works on your shift because you do something different. Tell everybody, if you make this change, it works. And one of the ways, and you're all like, can I do that? Of course you can do that. It may take a couple of layers of management. You may need to say to the pharmacist, I've got this idea that we can make an improvement, and then the pharmacist says to the manager, we've got this idea that we can make an improvement, and then the manager says to the regional director, we've got this idea we can make an improvement. But at some point, somebody's going to say, we've got this idea, and we are going to make an improvement. And then you'll get the company newsletter with the best practices saying that store 5942 in Hooterville, Nebraska made this change, and oh, guess what?
Somebody else got credit.
If you are interested in being part of the solution, but you don't know where to start, where does it break the most? Where does it fail the most often? Do you grab the right stuff off the shelf most of the time? Well, then that's not the problem. Does it happen at order entry? Does it happen at counting? Does it happen when the pharmacist verifies because they're too busy? Where does it fail? Fix that first. Because you realize how much time it takes you every time the system breaks down. And if we can just stop it from breaking, that road trip takes less time if we're not changing flat tires. It may still not be a perfect road trip. You may still end up at your mother-in-law's house. But at least you didn't have to stop and change a flat tire. Those are the kinds of things that we're looking at that you really are the experts in. And occasionally you will find something that can't change. The problem is the computer software. The problem is the physical layout, and we don't have enough money to do a remodel. But often it's not anything that big. It's something much smaller, something that is changeable, and that's what we need to work on. Communication. Does anybody have a formal shift handoff? I don't think so. Nursing does. Respiratory therapy does. Dietetics does. Medicine does. Why don't we have a formal handoff? Well, because we only overlap by 5 minutes. And if I clock out late, and if she clocks in early, and if I don't care. You can do a fabulous shift handoff in 3 minutes. If you don't have a 3-minute overlap, let's go back a slide and say that is something we can change. And we have to. And handoff has to be ranked. This is the most important thing you need to know. This is what we are still waiting on, whether we're waiting on the pharmacist or we're waiting on a doctor callback. And I'm sure that it only happens to me, but occasionally you are waiting on the insurance company. Or we are waiting for the order to come in. One of the things that happens when you work the vampire shift is you get to check in the order. and you open the controlled substances tote, and there are 2 empty bottles in there. Because somebody needed to use the product to fill a prescription before it was. See, if we had a communications process, and I knew that the wholesaler had not in fact sent me an empty bottle, and I knew that it had been used, then we would all be okay. And the controlled substances thing, that's an alley issue. Patient safety, probably no. Other than the few moments that I spent panicking when the bottles don't look right. Maybe in those few moments I could have hurt somebody. But what if I am waiting for the insurance company to call back? You have called for a prior approval on a patient with a terrible infection that will only respond to super expensive antibiotic. And they haven't called you back. If the next shift doesn't know, they're not going to hassle the insurance company. I have a dying patient. The patient will not survive this infection if I don't get approval to fill this drug. Or the patient will not survive this particular bout of congestive heart failure. Or it sure would be good if this cystic fibrosis kiddo could breathe. We have to have a systematized handoff. And I think you need to build it. We can all help you. We have all worked with those teams that have an organized handoff. But it needs to be really quick. You have to be able to get it done in 3 minutes. I think you ought to write it down. It doesn't have to be in full paragraph form with proper punctuation. It just has to tell me what's going on. So that if it doesn't happen during my shift at all, insurance companies don't call during the vampire shift. When I hand it off in the morning, I need to not miss anything. I need to not drop the ball. And you need to be able to go back to the handoff book or the handoff chart in the computer or the handoff blackboard, I don't know what it is, and say, yes, this came up 3 days ago and we are still working on it. And I know that Susie called at 9, and I know that John, when he came in at 1, made the call, and I know we are following through. We are managing this, and if you don't have an organized way to communicate, HIPAA be damned. Don't put it on the signboard where they advertise the, what? Back to school supplies, Miller Lite on sale, $6.99 a 12-pack. That's a sign that was at the store where I worked. Really, I'm like, Miller Lite's not a back-to-school supply, but thank you. Really, truly, okay? But there is a way for you to communicate patient-specific information to the next shift that is not a HIPAA violation, because we're all taking care of that patient. There is something going on in our institution, our part of the institution, and we cannot drop this ball. And then the final piece is, when you build this system, make sure everybody uses it the same way. And if it turns out that not everybody uses it the same way, then get your heads together and figure out who's doing it best. And I will tell you that patient initials is never best. Because amazingly, more than one person in the world has the initials AD. I need you to know that you're talking about me and not somebody else. And I will submit to you that that keeps you safe. That one of the hardest things on you and your psyche and my ability to keep you on my team is when a patient goes postal and screams at you and you're like, I didn't know. Well, you should have known. Yeah, you probably should have. And it was the handoff, the shift change, that fell short. So occasionally we can learn things from other folks on the healthcare team. And, last little tidbit, make sure your pharmacists do a handoff too. Hey, sorry I'm late, a little bit of traffic, that's okay, gotta go, kid hasn't, wait. And I'm fine with you saying, nobody leave, until the two of you talk to each other. Because there's gotta be stuff going on the pharmacist side too. Plan ahead. Make sure that we have 3 minutes to do a handoff. And when you convince management that you upset fewer patients when you take that 3 minutes, we're going to figure out who clocks in when and who clocks out when, and yes, we actually get a chance to talk to each other. I promise. You don't believe me. But the only thing management likes less than that extra 2 minutes on your time card is a ticked off customer. So you will win. And really, truly, do you love this? I said my name was Mark with a C. I think that meant M-A-R-C, not C-A-R-K. Got it? So sometimes, even when we do our best to communicate, we don't get it right. But we keep tweaking the system. We keep making it work. To do this handoff, be organized and be systematic. Make sure that I know that the first thing you tell me is the most important thing that you have to tell me. And depending on how long my 3 minutes lasts, we may not get to everything, but it's written down someplace. That we're all going to do it exactly the same way. If it was the first Monday of the month from hell, I may not be able to get through my list in 3 minutes, but we're all going to know where it is. And we're all going to be able to go figure out what that means. And it's not in the comments section of the individual prescription. I don't have time to look through the comment section of 3,000 prescriptions. It has to be someplace where it makes sense to me. And then, to make this work, you have to tell management how much you value this shift handoff. And you have to tell each other how much you value this shift handoff. Now, I will grant you that the story I'm about to tell you was not a shift handoff, but it's pretty darn similar. I got an email from the fine folks who have organized this last week when I had a meeting in Lincoln and I was not on campus. And I wrote back and said, hey, sorry, I'm not there. I don't have access to what I need. I will get it to you in the morning. I got there that morning and I had an email from Judy saying, will you please? And I said, man, I'm sure that I said I would get that done today. Oh, I hadn't looked at that yet. Hey, no problem. I'll get it to you. And we were both going, well, gosh, you know, I tried and she tried, and she's like, well, I tried and I don't understand. And then she broke that whole weird cycle and wrote back and said, thank you. It matters to me that you understand why this is important. All of my frustration with, I thought I answered and didn't you get the thing, and her frustration with, why didn't you get this done, you're usually reliable. When we figured out what went wrong, the one who broke the was her when she said, hey, thanks. I get it. And at the end of a terrible shift, When somebody says to you, thank you, I can take the ball from here. You really walk out of work that day feeling better. I know you don't believe me. If it has never happened, I know you don't believe me. But as long as we are complete, and as long as we take the time to say this is valuable, which means you are valuable. I need to be better at that. I suspect most pharmacists do. But every once in a while, I remember to say, thank you, you are valuable. One of the reasons that every time I get asked to talk to you, I try so hard to say yes, is because I have a chance to say thank you. You are valuable. And frankly, the system wouldn't work without you. Not anymore. I used to be able to work all by myself. Really, I did. Yeah, that would be a scary thing. And then we need to think about some distractions. Are patients distractions? No. Patients are the reasons we exist. But there are some places in the system where we don't need the patient involved. Really, it's going to be 10 minutes. Go look at some Hallmark cards or a magazine. Don't need to stand here. And oh, by the way, when you tap your keys on the counter, that's pharmacy code for can you go slower? Just needed you to know that. So we do need to find some way to minimize the distraction of patients while still understanding that without them we don't need to exist. If suddenly the world got healthy, then we wouldn't have jobs. Are phones a distraction? Yes. Yes, they absolutely are. My question is, in your workflow, how many phones ring that don't need to? Not how fast can you answer the phone. That's not my question. My question is, if the phone at that end of the counter rings, can I hear it? Then shut the ringer off on all the rest. If you have 4 phones ringing and everybody could hear one, you can decrease by 300% the noise in the pharmacy by shutting off 3 of those ringers. And you can all still hear it. It's amazing. Now, if it ever gets so noisy that a phone rings that you don't hear, then you have to readjust. Just shut the ringers off. And perhaps as you're building the world's perfect workflow that is going to get you national recognition, you understand that somebody is supposed to answer that phone? And we just build into workflow who that is? Or maybe this doctor-only line rings on one phone and the, oh, this is going to drive me nuts, rings on the other phone. I don't know. But I think that those are things that you can build into your workflow, that you can change. The overhead announcements and the music, oh, Lord love a duck. But perhaps you can convince management that there is a safety issue and it either needs to be muted or shut off in your work area. You honestly don't care that Gatorade No Carb is on sale this week. I get it. I mean, perhaps you'll buy it as you're walking past it on your way to the time clock, but you don't need to hear, and the Disney princesses, oh God. Oh. Is there anybody so important that they ought to break your workflow? I don't know the answer to that completely. I think that there are probably some physicians who believe that they are. They're calling for a reason, because now all they have to do is take out some electronic device and go tap, 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 and you get an order for Capitan 12.5, 1 teaspoonful, and you call them, and it's learning. Learn from others' mistakes. Do not call the physician and say, I can put 32 and a half tablets of Capitan into a teaspoon. I think that would be an overdose. Don't do that. They didn't think it was nearly as funny as I thought it was. Well, I meant tablet. Well, you prescribed teaspoonful. Yeah, I thought it was really clever not. That would not be accurate. But all of those things, how do we work in, if management comes back, do we all drop what we're doing and say, yes, ma'am, how may I help you? Don't do that. Unless your manager is the critically ill patient, don't do that. It is exceptionally important that you say, I am taking care of a patient right now. You may wait. What do you mean I may wait? I mean you may wait. You hired me to keep patients safe. And if you bust into my workflow right now, you're messing up my chance of doing that. Don't do that until you tell your pharmacist you're gonna. Because any one of you standing beside me at my counter who says, Allie, I'm just going to say, I'm taking care of patients. Patient safety comes first. I don't have time to answer you right now. And my answer is going to be, I'm going to back you. You know, Deborah's right. We don't have time right now. Come on back when we're not so busy, when we don't have a patient that we're currently taking care of. No. And you can minimize those distractions. And they will learn to respect that. It may not fit into nicely to their day. This is about patient safety. This is about the reason that prescriptions are prescriptions. If they were universally safe, you could buy them at the gas and gag. You wouldn't need to wait on a pharmacist. These are dangerous drugs. They wouldn't be prescription if they weren't. You get that, right? Well, when you start saying that to people who interrupt you for no good reason, and it's never the store manager, by then the store manager has figured it out. You don't get to be a store manager until you figure it out. It's the new assistant store manager who thinks he's really cool because he's got a new title. He probably ordered business cards. He's thinking about getting vanity plates for his car. I am an assistant store manager. Yeah, and my patients come first. And we're going to train you up good so that when you become the full store manager, they're going to love you because we are going to train you up right. And I'm fine with that. Cell phones? I'm old, I am. I have never told anybody to get off of my lawn. But by God, when you're at work for me, I don't need you checking Facebook. I don't need you taking a call from your mother or your kid or your husband or your best friend or your whatever. And if that thing rings, I'm going to put it in the freezer. And it will never turn on again. Because there's just enough moisture in that freezer that when I freeze that battery, that phone will never turn on again. Now, I may be a little bit harsh, but you all know the colleague who is on their cell phone when they're supposed to be taking care of a patient. If that patient is my mother, trust me when I tell you, I'm going to own you, your pharmacist, and your store. Because the one thing that I can guarantee I'm going to check if there is an injury is who was on duty and give me their cell phone records. And if anybody was on their personal cell phone during the time when my mother was injured, life is going to be ugly. Now, I do know that I worked for a company where cell phones are fabulous when the system crashes. You turn to the check-in charge and you say, Judy, man, can you send out a notice to all the other stores that we're down? My phone doesn't work, my computer doesn't work, my whatever doesn't work. Judy whips out her personal cell phone and sends that whatever code that every technician that's ever worked for the company seems to get, and boom, message sent. I get that. I understand there are times when you need them, but it is not every shift. And it is a problem. And truly, I'm going to check cell phone records if there was an error made. And when I ask the court for permission, they're going to give it to me. So just think about that, because that's all y'all. Chatter? Oh, man. I'm from Nebraska. There's a football game today. And more importantly, there wasn't a football game last weekend because we had lightning in Lincoln and they canceled our first football game of the year. I mean, no, seriously, it's like somebody cut out my heart. So is there anything that I want to talk about more than Husker football right now? Nothing. There is nothing that I want to talk about more. I am so excited for this game. Is there anybody here from Colorado? Oh, I'm sorry, sweetheart. Don't take this personally. We're playing the damn Buffaloes. And I cannot wait for this football game. But, that's chatter for my break and my lunch. That is not chatter for my pharmacy count. Oh, jeez. Maybe I'm okay with where do you want to go to lunch? I think I would like Asian food today. I can live with that. But constant, mindless, you are not the first person in the world who has ever had a baby. Somebody else is. You aren't. I know it might be your first baby, but I don't need to hear about it when I'm trying to keep my patients safe. If we keep our eye on the prize, nobody gets distracted. And please, no politics in my pharmacy. I care about you. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care who you love. I don't care who you worship. As long as you are happy and you're being treated well, that's all that matters to me. And it just doesn't belong there, because there might be somebody who does care, who gets all hot and bothered, and then I've got a whole different set of distractions, and I did, right? And we even discourage the patients from having those kinds of discussions at our counter. Lastly, is there bad training? Is there something that you walked in and you went, I wasn't trained on this? Then everybody else who walks in wasn't trained on it either. How can you help? Can you go to the pharmacist? Can you go to management? Can you go to the hospital director and say, I didn't know. I didn't know. And it's not me. I paid attention during training. You just don't teach us. We need to add it in. We need to find a way. Or better yet, I'll do it. I'll do this training. I'll create it. Because you know how you use the system. If I wrote the training, no, you'd get all done with the training and you still wouldn't know how to do anything, right? Because that's not what I'm good at. So we need to figure out all of those things. Unnecessary distractions, then, are those things that we can remove. If you can't remove them, can you mitigate them, like turning off a couple of phones, putting up some sort of a temporary wall so that the patients can't, saying to the manager, don't come in here, whatever it may be. So, I asked you a question about judgment. You remember? True or false, is it legal for a technician to use judgment at work?
Yes.
Yes.
Have yes, 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 no. Remember, somebody once said, I bet we could make a movie about a tornado filled with sharks. I bet they thought it was stupid when they said it. We're now on what, Sharknado 72, I think? Some solutions need creativity.
That's a good one.
And creativity is judgment. Of course you can use judgment. Now, there may be a state law that says you can't pretend you're a pharmacist. I'm okay with that. We have a really good pharmacy school. Any of you would like to be pharmacists? Please apply to the University of Nebraska Medical Center. We'll teach you up good. You'll have a really great time, and Judy's there. So you'll have a friend to rely on, right? Of course you can use judgment. What you cannot do is use a pharmacist's judgment. That would not be legal. Some of the things that you will see that are a danger to patient safety are obvious. Do you all have sharp Band-Aids and cotton swabs where you work? Because they're not sharp where I work. And here's the problem. When you put all that crap in my sharps container, there's not room for the sharp stuff. And even if you're not the immunizer, you can certainly say to the pharmacist, did we make a mistake and order sharp Band-Aids? Because if we didn't, stop putting them in the sharps container. We run out of room. You're killing me, Small. Right? You know the patient for whom this is a problem. In fact, I bet you know before I know. Yes, I can look at all the DUR data. Yes, I can say, boy, this seems like a refill too soon. But you know the patient who calls every morning and says, will my claim go through yet? Is my claim going to go through yet? And some of them are people where we're not treating their pain well. And we just need to get the dose fixed. And some of them are people who have swirled down into that miserable world of being in real trouble. And sometimes it's a colleague. And you're going to know before I know if one of the other pharmacists or one of the other technicians or somebody else in the pharmacy is dealing drugs. Please do something. In some places, and depending upon the offense, it may be something that you have to report in order to protect your own credential. I don't want it to get that far. I just want to be able to help. And sometimes I am oblivious. If you have a patient who always brings you treats when they pick up their codeine-containing cough syrup, something's not right. And furthermore, people don't have a cough for 4 straight months. I just wanted you to know. It's just not true. Don't ever let my patient see you on your phone. Not ever. You know that I'm really fine with turning it off and sticking it in your pocket. Judy will tell you that when I walk into the College of Pharmacy, I shut my cell phone off. And I don't turn it back on until I leave. Frustrates the crap out of my kids, which is just another benefit. But, and I am fine if you find a way, probably this is a little harsh, when a patient says, I want to talk to a pharmacist, to say, hey, when you're done with that phone call, I'll go get him. I'm good with that. unless they are on the phone with someone who is going to interpret for me or who has a question. Hey, my mom has a question for the pharmacist. That's different than, well, yeah, and pick up milk and cheese and what else, and I want to talk to the, yeah, just a second. When they look up at me and say, just a second, oh, yeah, my blood pressure goes up. Oh my goodness gracious, my blood pressure goes up. Folks, I just took this photo. I don't know.
That's gotta be. That's funny.
So, right? So I'm not saying that our jobs can't be funny. And I'm not saying that they can't be enjoyable. Because I think they are. But my biggest high five is, we got that paid for, we saved that patient, we refused to fill and saved a life. That's when we ought to all go, yes! That dose can't be right. I am not going to hurt this patient till I double check it. Please do not try on the condoms in the aisle. Right. Please don't do that. Any of you work in a store with a drive-thru? The one who comes drive-through naked is never the one you wish it was. Right? Oh, I know. It's like the world's back hair convention. Yeah. So the next thing is, you fixed the problem. Does it stay fixed? Or do people go back to the old way? What are we going to do to reinforce and reinforce? Yeah. How many of you saw it? Apply to your entire bodega. Yeah. So did it stay fixed? And those things happen. I got that. But we need to be sure it stays fixed. I also need you to know that we do want your help. You're all sitting here and I say, well, tell your pharmacist that you want to make the following change. And I saw a couple of you go, yeah, not my pharmacist. Yeah, we really do. We really do. Because at the end of the day, if something goes wrong, my butt's in the same sling as yours. And I don't want to hurt the patient. If you say to me, Allie, you do this poorly. But if you say to me, Allie, when you do whatever, I worry about the patient safety implication. Can we, oh, okay, I got it. You're not just picking on me, you are protecting my patient. I know they're your patient. Just don't tell me that. Tell me it's my patient that you're protecting. And we're going to get along okay, because I really do want your help. I will also tell you that the American Pharmacists Association is stepping up for all of us. They are working on policy to help pharmacists help you. They are working on policy about sufficient staffing. They are working on policy that says performance-based metrics have to go away, that patient safety metrics have to come in instead. They are working on policy that says teamwork is the best way to make this work. So I want you to own your part of the solution. Be a part of the solution always. Advocate for the patient always. And I know that for a couple of you, boy, I would love to go to pharmacy school, I just can't stand the chemistry. I understand that, actually. I managed to get through pharmacy school in spite of the fact that there was chemistry. But our joke is, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the precipitate. And the precipitate is the stuff that falls out of a solution when something goes wrong, like the lead in the water in Flint, Michigan. And I don't want you to be the lead in the water in Flint, Michigan. I want you to be a part of the solution because it matters to me that much. They asked me to give you multiple choice questions. So I did something that I hope will help you figure out the answers. When pharmacy technicians are allowed to use judgment at work, the answer is clearly D, always. So what did I do? Well, I put a dog in your handout because dog starts with D. Got it? The most common pharmacy distraction, how many of you just looked at the creature? Well, yes, bear starts with B. Okay, so I'm not going to go through the rest of the questions with you. You can check your own answer if you can figure out what the creature is. And I tried to give you really good pictures so that you could do that. Are there any? Yes, ma'am.
Someone was taking the pictures of the animals.
Oh, you guys don't have pictures of the animals? Well, that's a bummer. Okay, so never have unauthorized people in the pharmacy. And I am fine with you saying, I don't think that person belongs here, make them leave. Especially in the hospital. Because there's all kinds of random and weird people who walk past. The key elements at shift change, most you knew, as soon as you read shift change, you went, oh yeah, she was talking about communication. Well, this would be a dolphin. Every one of those things is super important. And everybody needs to know what's happening, and everybody needs to do it every time. Because it's when I'm too busy to do shift change that it is needed the most. And the last one, an unnecessary distraction, this is actually an anteater. So that would be A. An unnecessary distraction is one of those things that I can get rid of. And if I can't completely get rid of them, I can mitigate them. And all of those things become really important to all of us because our goal is patient safety. What's necessary? Attention to detail, planning, awareness, communications, and all of the above. I'm pretty sure that's an elephant. So that would be an E, and I think that you knew that. I spent a lot of time talking to experts when we talk about patient safety and ultimately then your safety. And it may not be that any of these things will prevent an armed robbery, but the biggest danger to your safety is that we create a workplace where you are so unhappy that you get sick, that you stress out about it, and then my fear of all fears, you leave your profession. I have to train somebody else. And I loved you. You knew what you were doing. And you had some experience, and you were logical. You were all of those things, and then... So if there's anything that I can do for you, I have published for you the APHA policy statements that I think really will matter to you. Talk to your pharmacist. Say, I like this. It doesn't go far enough, whatever it is. If there is something that Allie personally can do, Judy can always get you in touch with me. And I think that somewhere you've got some sort of contact, something for me. Please feel free to use it unless it's an emergency, because I shut my cell phone off most of the time. And furthermore, today I am not responding to any emergencies because there's a football game. Are there any questions? It is an honor to have been able to talk to you, and it's really cool because I know what's coming next. They're going to do some awards. And I wish that there was an award for every one of you, because I can't practice without my technician support. And you just need to know that. So on behalf of all of the pharmacists who don't say it nearly often enough, thank you for doing what you do. It really does matter.